my son had brought me a cigar from the Dominican. And I had cigars from the Dominican too, so I just stayed on my counter for a long time because I was never too happy with Dominican cigars that I've had recently. Well, recently, I mean in about 10 years. And so I got the cigar out last night. It was a Monte Cristo. I struck it up, and I had a cup of Harvey's Bristol Cream by my side. So I had sherry and the cigar. Well, I got to tell you, it was one of the best cigars I've ever had. I'm telling you, it was smooth. It was tasty. It burned just perfectly. It was an excellent cigar. I haven't had a cigar like that in many, many years.
Okay.
Usually the ones that people bring you aren't very good because they don't know how to buy a cigar. But this one was just too nice. Good morning, Metaphysical Mike.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Dave, and welcome to Talking Niagara, everybody. You know, I was looking yesterday, and I just wanted to talk briefly. Okay, so I was looking yesterday at the UK predictions. I was looking at seat predictions for the UK for the upcoming next week's election on July 4th. And no wonder the Conservatives are in a dire strait. Essentially, what is happening across the board is that, and the weird thing is, you look at the south coast of England, the southern England, outside of London in southern England, basically, other than the big cities like Bristol, Southampton, Portsmouth, Plymouth, maybe even Brighton to some extent, you get this situation whereby generally that's the only Labour stronghold there is in the south, on the south coast. Everywhere else is Conservative or Liberal Democrat. And essentially what is happening down there is because in Bournemouth, for example, there's 2 seats in Bournemouth that are going from Conservative, and these are Conservative stronghold seats going to Labour at this election, seemingly next week. And the reason why they're doing that is because basically if you add UK Reform Party to Conservative, you'll get 45%, but Labour's on 39% type thing.
Kind of a reversal of Toronto St. Paul.
Well, what is happening is
conservative. They're going from sort of conservative to liberal.
Well, what is happening is Reform are splitting the Conservative vote in 2.
Yeah, that's Nigel Farage's outfit, isn't it?
Reform, and you see, despite their nearly 20% in the polls and catching the Conservatives in the polls only a point ahead of them, they're likely to win 2 seats, grand total of 2 seats.
Well,
right. And I went, and
that reminds me, we should bring it.
Yeah, I went further looking for this weekend's also election in France, and it looks like Macron's gamble is not going to pay off. Front National are winning, Rally National are winning this election.
See, they didn't pay proper attention, and they. I don't know. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens there when it actually happens. But if we go back to the Toronto St. Paul disaster for the Liberals, I knew it was a disaster for the Liberals that Toronto St. Paul voted Conservative. I just didn't know how bad of a disaster it was. Today is going to be the caucus meeting of the Liberals. And there are going to be many, many Liberals who are worried that their seats will be upended, not because of them, but because of Trudeau. They may be able to hold on because of their personality or whatever, because the voters like them in their own constituencies, but they feel that because Trudeau, as a leader, is a big problem, and they may get tarred with the same brush as Trudeau. they're worried about the wipeout that happened under Michael Ignatieff back in 2011, where the seats were knocked down to 44 in the House of Commons among the Liberals.
Well,
so these guys, the Liberals as a party, every backbencher is worried that their seat is going to go over to the Conservatives because of Trudeau, not so much because of the Liberals. So today in the caucus meeting, I believe that Trudeau, Justin, is going to start getting very serious suggestions that he must leave. Because the Liberals kind of see a defeat coming, but they don't defeat like they had in 2011. A lot of those Liberals that hold seats want to keep them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, 2011 was pretty bad for the Liberals. Yeah. Dave?
You keep freezing. You keep freezing on me here.
I'm not freezing. You're the one who's freezing. Okay. Yeah, 2011.
Not you, me.
2011 was pretty bad for the Liberals, right?
Yeah, they went down to 44 seats or 41 seats. Or
while we're on this subject, Bernie Sanders was talking about Jamal Bowman and saying if they're successful in defeating Jamal Bowman, every member of Congress will need to be looking over their shoulders, and they being AIPAC, of course.
AIPAC and the different ways in which AIPAC disguises themselves. The AIPAC, of course, is the Israeli lobby. There's more than one Israeli lobby, but AIPAC is the main one. And they, of course, team up with the other factions. They call themselves Democracy of America, or they have names that they call themselves with their super PACs. They have brought in an unprecedented, unbelievable $15 million into this race between Jamal, the two Democrats, the two candidates for the Democratic position for that Congress.
Basically, this is Jamal Bowman and George Latimer. And Jamal Bowman is the sitting senator.
Yes. And is he the senator or a congressman?
Sorry, no, congressman. Sorry, I misread that. Yeah, congressman.
Yeah, it's been a few days since I've read that article.
Yeah.
Yes, and as we predicted here on this show, that the hard Israel anti-Semite type of talk didn't work against Republican Thomas Massie, so they're trying a different tack here. There's a lot of Republican money, a lot of big Republican money coming in that aids AIPAC. And their take is that Jamal is not a good Democrat. He isn't towing the line and Biden line. So they're actually taking up a lot of the complaints that some of the Democrats have against the progressives and amplifying it. So things that they don't believe in, things that they don't care about, they're using those things against Jamal Bowman. It's really quite remarkable. They're actually, Latimer is taking scads and scads of Republican money to unseat Jamal Bowman. And Jamal Bowman has already had that seat twice, I believe. Yeah. But AIPAC wants him in.
Yeah. And okay, so by his name Jamal, that is likely an Islamic name anyway, but this is a black individual.
Well, yeah, like a lot of the a lot of the names like Jamal and you see Muhammad Ali, so names of Muslim origin became a little bit popular due to the Black Muslim movement in the United States. Yeah. Although most of the blacks did not convert to Islam or the Black Islam movement under Elijah Muhammad, as Muhammad Ali did. Like Cassius Clay turned to Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but a lot of the names became popular.
Yeah, as I say, Jamal is an Islamic name, but that doesn't mean he's Islamic.
I think Jamal means Friday, doesn't it? Something like that.
I actually don't know the meaning of it. You may well be right. Yeah, I just know it's. Yeah.
If it is, I have an affinity there because my name in Ghana was Coffee, which means Friday born.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, and Latimer basically is fighting for this, fighting for this nomination to take it away for the first time. Right.
Well, he's okay. Go ahead.
And he's got Governor, former Governor Andrew Cuomo. I always mispronounce that, Cuomo, on his side.
Well, this guy Latimer is a bought and paid for candidate.
Yeah.
As Jamal Bowman is struggling to tell everyone that they went searching for a guy that they could use, and they found Latimer, and so he is a bought and paid for candidate. He will just do as he's told by AIPAC. That is a very uncomfortable. If they get that message across properly, it's hard to get it across because there's so much negative attack ads against Jamal. I don't know if Jamal's message can get back out. He doesn't have anywhere near the money that Latimer has. So Latimer's people, AIPAC, are swarming the place with negative attack ads. What Jamal is trying to say is Latimer is bought and paid for. He's bought and paid for by the Israel lobby, and he'll do anything that they tell him to do.
Okay, but one of the accusations Latimer is making is you don't mention people who are not black or brown. This is towards Bowman.
Yeah, this is yeah. So the idea of racism versus anti-Semitism.
Yeah, and therefore he's basically saying that you're ignoring entire electoral districts because they only have white faces in them. And I don't think that's probably not true. That doesn't sound as if that would be true.
Yeah, the Democrats are trying to unseat, like some Democrats are trying to unseat him, but you get people like Pelosi and Clinton who once backed up Bowman, as far as I'm concerned. They themselves are beholden to the AIPAC, so they are now against Bowman. And fraught debates over race and class papered over for years in this diverse, largely segregated district have exploded into referendum on the nature and future of the party. Defending Bowman, now considered the most endangered Democrat of his primary season, has become more than a political necessity. The fortunes being spent by pro-Israeli lobby, including AIPAC and Democratic Majority. Democratic Majority, I think, is a super PAC to boost Latimer. Have contributed to the end of days vibe around the race. If Bowman fails, his allies reason a chilling effect will settle in, radiating up and down the ballot.
Yeah.
And Bernie Sanders has said, if they are successful in defeating Jamal, every member of Congress will be looking over their shoulder. In other words, the billionaire class is going to spend millions of dollars against.
Mike says Latimer won.
He did? Oh, so yeah, the game was afoot yesterday. Yes. Okay. Latimer won. Bad. Oh, that's bad. In fact, that is the worst news ever. That means more money means you can get rid of your congressman. That's very, very bad. Very, very bad. I wonder how much he won by. And AIPAC not a foreign interference? Is APEC not a foreign interference? Yes, it is. But the way they get around that is they use Americans to do the dirty work. So many of those Americans hold passports in Israel and the United States, so they can say, "Well, it's Americans doing this." So they got rid of Jamel Bowman. That is a disaster, if you ask me. That tells me that how powerful APEC is, and how we'll never get a fair deal in the Middle East because of the power of APEC and how they make. And unfortunately, it is the old trope, and it's going to be the worst thing for anti-Semitism. I tell you, because it's the old trope that the Jews control things behind the scenes. That was the old Nazi sort of ideology.
Yeah, it was.
And here you have Jews, no, not all Jews, but Israelis basically, or Zionists basically, controlling what's happening in the United States. They have an APEC guy on their shoulder every. That's a disaster. Vladimir winning is absolute disaster, in my opinion.
Okay, basically what they're saying is AP is saying that when they called the race, Latimer held a 26% lead in Westchester with almost half the county's estimated vote tabulated. Westchester accounts for 90% of the district's population.
That's sad, very sad.
Okay, yeah, I forgot to look that up. I was, yeah. Okay, so moving on. Oh, good morning, Randy West, and good morning, Chris Simone. All right.
Morning, Chris. Morning, Randy.
Yeah, and while we're there, okay, let's move on. Let's move on, shall we? Yesterday's cold front could, in fact, bring more severe weather in its tail.
Yes, I put that in just as a local of interest. We're not going to get a heat wave coming up. Like, those are over for the meantime. But we got this cooler weather that came in on Tuesday, and that may bring some violent storms.
Horrible winds.
I don't see any signs of them this morning.
100-kilometer-an-hour winds is what they're potentially talking about. No, but the point being is, it's not prolonged windiness, but basically just windy storms coming through. Maybe we won't have them today, but maybe they come in this afternoon or even tomorrow, etc. Maybe towards the weekend.
Yeah. So that's I don't know that. Well, that I put that there just for that reason, just to keep.
I know. Well, we obviously always should be looking at that anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so you put in another article in here about recalls on several vehicles: Maserati, Mercedes, Porsche, Audi, Volkswagen, Toyota, Chevy, Ford, Dodge, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Fisker, Rivian. What the hell is a Rivian? Never heard of that one.
No, me neither.
Actually, I had a recall on mine. On my Jeep, and I've already taken it in. The recall was basically 3 months ago. I had the recall. It's already been taken in and fixed. It was like a 10-minute thing. And what they were basically saying is they were replacing bolts because they'd had some incidents of sheared bolts. I don't know whether that's so for all of these cases, but these are bolts that affect the steering system.
Oh, boy.
Right. So obviously, when you're talking about bolts like that, you're talking about they have to be right. Yeah, you know what I mean?
What they've done is they've probably put in the wrong grade bolt. Bolts are graded.
And that's probably what's happening. Yeah. They've probably done this in all of these models. That's probably why. Because bolts are manufactured by a bolt manufacturer, and what has happened is there's been a couple of accidents, and somebody's seen that these bolts are broken, and taken it back to the bolt manufacturer, who suddenly realized there's a whole batch that was faulty.
Not faulty. They went cheap. What happened is the manufacturer, whoever was Chrysler or whatever, went cheap. They went for the cheapest bolt of that dimension, and they sheared. It looks like they're failing. Yeah. So all they have to do is upgrade. And in North America, almost every Allen head bolt is like grade 5. It's a higher end bolt, but that's basically all you have to do is switch. If it's a 3/4 bolt, you just have to switch to a higher grade metal.
Well, basically, yeah, the Stellantis group of vehicles includes Chrysler Pacifica, Dodge Durango, Jeep Compass, Jeep Grand Cherokee, Jeep Grand Wagoneer, Jeep Wagoneer, Ram 1500, Ram 2500, Ram 3500, Ram ProMaster. So essentially the whole line.
Well, this is a huge amount of recalls. Yeah. Maserati, Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Audi, those are all high end. Then you get to the Volkswagen, which is already Volkswagen, Toyota, Chevrolet, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep. Those are just regular, and then Ram and Kia, Hyundai, Fisker, and Rivian. I still don't know what Rivian is.
I've never heard of Fisker and Rivian either. A Rivian issued an airbag recall.
Well, what is a Rivian?
I've never heard of Rivian. Yeah, don't know.
It may be just a sideline of the, like Dodge, like the Chrysler or something.
I don't know. Rivian 2020.
Rivian electric adventure vehicles.
Okay, there you go.
Rivian Automotive is an American electric vehicle. Yeah. Actually, Rivian, now I do remember it. Rivian is a electric automotive vehicle manufacturer that's been around probably longer than Tesla. I think they were one of the very first electric vehicle that don't get a whole lot of press, but they've been around for a long time.
Well, on Fisker, this other one I've never heard of, they've got a recall on the 2023 Ocean, which is about brake system warning indicators not meeting requirements for Canadian regulations.
Okay, if anyone's got any of those vehicles, just keep in mind that there's a recall out there. That I put that in our list, like I did the weather one, just as kind of a public service.
I know. I get you. Yeah. Okay.
Also, everyone, another public service one I put in a couple of days ago was the Boys and Girls Club are looking for people to step up.
Yeah. I wasn't going to come to that next, but it was going to be the one after.
I think it was since we're on the public service thing.
But we can. So while we're there, let's go to Big Brothers. That's fine. They're seeking passionate individuals to make a profound impact on the lives of children facing adversity. I'd love to be able to put the job ad for this volunteer role up, but unfortunately the job ad goes to a 404 page, not available.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So go speak with Big Brother, Big Sister if you're interested in volunteering.
Yeah, I never was one myself, but I've known a couple of people who have done that, and it's worked out very well for them to be a big brother, or big sister. As a matter of fact, my ex was a big sister. A buddy of mine was a big brother, and it worked out very well for those people, very well. For both, you get something out of it. Plus, you improve the life of someone who doesn't have a father or a mother.
Well, or has troubles. Yeah, not necessarily fatherless or motherless, but yeah.
Mike Cushman, in the vein of what we were just talking about, Mike Cushman says the bolt manufacturer, were they from Boeing?
Boing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So where I was going next was Bonnie Crombie and Marit Stiles were basically at a rally to save the Ontario Science Centre, and they're basically vowing to fight Doug Ford's decision to shut the Ontario Science Centre and eventually relocate it to Ontario Place. And well, on the surface of it, the decision to shut the centre was because of a roofing problem that they had at the centre.
Yes, but it's the way in which they did it.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Avro Arrow thing. The conservative government suddenly destroyed the Avro Arrow for no apparent reason. And now they're kind of the Ontario Conservatives are destroying the Ontario Science Center. And they're using a trumped up case of faulty roofing. That roofing that they're talking about would be a danger come October when you might get snowfalls. So basically, most of the roof is okay. It's just only parts of it that may be threatening, and that only when the snow starts to fall. And so they give it to October just to give it lots of latitude. You're not going to get snowfalls in October.
Well,
you could get a freak one. You could get a freak one. So anyway, so they called it safe up until October, and that's only parts of it. So the Ontario government that probably is looking at that land for development says, well, that's all we need. We're going to close it down. It's a safety issue, and no more Ontario Science Center. And we'll take it. We're going to put it in Ontario Place instead. We're going to move it there, and it's going to cost, and won't be able to reopen again until 2029. Seriously?
Yeah.
Why not fix the roof?
How much does it take to fix the roof? And how much money is it going to take to empty that building, store everything away, and decommission the building? I mean, store everything away, then move it to Ontario Place. That's going to cost a lot more money than fixing the roof, I would think.
They're going to have to build a facility in Ontario Place, and the reason why this is troublesome is Ontario Place is a lovely place, but it's hard for people to get there. There's never enough parking. There's it takes lots of time to get there. The Ontario Science Center, where it was a good and easy location to get to. You don't have to go through downtown. I've been there with my kids. It's an easy location to get to. It's easy to park. It's easy to get in, and they have programs there. I think Ford really messed up.
Don't they have school programs there on a regular basis?
Well, I can't remember now, but I do remember taking my kids there, and I do remember kids going there as part of their school trips, basically, to go to the Ontario Science Center.
Yeah. And that's what I mean, is school trips. Obviously,
I've also went to the Ontario Science Center Ontario North Science Center in Sudbury, and it was great. It was great for the kids, and it really is a phoneless adventure.
Yeah, lots of little buttons to press, We keep little hands that were just continually pressing those buttons. Yeah.
Yeah, and certain things in the Science North there, I think it was in Science North. It could have been the Ontario Science Center down here, but they had a little generator you could crank with your hand.
Yeah.
To produce power into water, and then you could produce little bubbles of hydrogen. So that showed you that if you put electrical power into water, you can get hydrogen out of it, and that then can be used as a fuel. So that was kind of very interesting. It showed you how it had models where it could show you how water would sculpt the landscape, and where water would deposit the sort of sediments that it carried with it and all that kind of thing. I don't understand what this is all about, and I have a terrible feeling that Ford is going to turn the land that on the Ontario Science Center is over to one of his wealthy developer buddies. It just doesn't look good to me. It doesn't smell right, and that was one of the comments by one of the opposition politicians was, "This doesn't smell right."
Yeah, Smelly's Smelly's one of those oddities, right?
Something's rotten in the state of Ontario, to paraphrase Hamlet.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Not
Paraphrase
so sure
Hamlet with Shakespeare, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it needs something. I'm very disappointed by this. How much does it cost to fix a roof? Even if it's an expensive roof, I can't see it costing $1 million to fix the roof.
Look, they shut it down suddenly on a Friday, and then they start demolition already. Seriously?
Really?
Yes.
Are you joking?
I read that somewhere. I don't know if that's true or not, but I heard it or read it somewhere that they're already beginning demolition.
Well, I would have thought. You see, I would have thought that when I don't know what how the roof is for the science center, but if I would have thought that what you would do would be somehow string a tent across the top of it, so you could actually make a working surface underneath, so you protect the workers from the weather, and at the same time provide some form of support for the workers while they fixed it.
But most of the roof is okay. According to the engineering report, most of the roof is okay. There's a small part of it. And this report came out, I think, in October last year, 2023. And the government has decided they're going to use that to shut it down. Seriously, when you have such a facility like that so many people depend upon, especially during the summer, because they have summer programs for kids and everything like that, and they shut it down. I don't know. I would like to get the whole story on this, because the government seems to be pretty quick in its judgment here. Now, of course, they have to worry about safety problems, but if the safety issue is on a minor part of the roof, which the critics have espoused, that it is a small problem in a certain place, and that over 90% of the tiles or whatever that's on the roof are okay, then you could isolate that certain part that may be at risk and fix it.
I was going to say, what you do is you put some form of tent over the top of the structure.
No, I'm talking about the people underneath. You can restrict,
and also some scaffolding
access to those parts.
Yeah, and scaffolding underneath and the tent over the top, in order that you can complete that work. And I can't see that being millions of dollars, where I would think moving all this stuff would be millions of dollars.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I have strong suspicion that land where the Ontario Science Center is going to go over to wealthy developers because of the demand for housing right now. And it's going to go high-end housing. You better believe it.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah. But again, there are some things like public museums and this sort of thing that really shouldn't be transferring to that kind of use.
Well, they're putting it down in Ontario Place. I love Ontario Place, but the problem is getting there. You're asking people to go to Ontario, like where the Ontario Science Center is now, is very accessible. But to put it downtown Toronto, you have to make your way through heavy traffic and go right downtown Toronto, where the Science Center, where it is.
It's on the island, isn't it?
Access.
It's on the island, isn't it? Ontario Place.
No, it's right on the shoreline. No.
Oh, it's on the shore. Okay. But it's in
Ontario
the
Place is fine, but when you have a place, and the problem here is, it's kind of like our farmers market here at the Exchange. You've got a small place that's overcrowded in the middle of the city, or you have the McBain Center, which is wide open and easy to access.
Yeah.
I was at the farmers market on the weekend, and this is just an analogy, and I find that I was talking to one or two of the vendors there, and they liked the McBain Center way better. There was more variety and more people at the McBain Center than there are at the Exchange right now. It's a smaller, more confined place, and it's hard to get parking. Whereas the McBain place was wide open and it had lots of parking. I think they should just take the farmers market and put it back to the McBain place. I mean, this is the same thing that happens in Ontario Place. Ontario Place is fine and wonderful and great. Ontario Science Center, moving it to Ontario Place puts it in a place that's much less accessible to the average person. Where it is, it's very accessible and easy to get to.
Yeah.
But it's prime real estate.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see where the area is, that it is prime real estate. But again, I think you need to make exceptions for this. Use the areas around it, but not this.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And something is rotten in the state of Ontario for sure.
Okay. Where was I?
In the province of Ontario. I'm sorry. Forgive me, poetic license.
Poetic license. Yeah. Where are we? 7:37. Wow, we're going well ahead of schedule. This lake in boys and girls.
Well, while you're waiting, I like to bring up the Toronto St. Paul thing again. Today they're having a caucus meeting. The Liberals were having a caucus meeting, and I think that there's going to be a big problem going on here. Like I said before, the Liberals backbenchers are worried about their seats going forward. And but the other thing I like to point out.
What happened? You jumped.
Am I still here?
You're still here, but you jumped onto as if you were speaking on something else. So, okay, you were talking about Liberals, and what was that in relation to? Because
as you were waiting to get the next topic up, I went back.
No, I was just bringing. Okay, sorry. Okay, that case, I was just bringing up these things that. Okay, so Chris Simoni was talking about volunteers leaving Big Brothers and Big Sisters because they announced they're switching their name to BNG, including new ideologies announced at the AGM. Right?
What are those new ideologies?
I don't know.
Volunteers are living. It's probably something to do with pride or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Then Mike Coates says the architect that built the Science Center offered his services to fix it for free. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah. Right.
I swear that property there, the developers in Ontario are just like salivating over it, and they got their buddy Doug Ford to make sure that happens.
Well,
that's my suspicion.
Yeah, there's provincial land. It should stay provincial land. Okay, moving on. Chris Simoni says, no, it was his mistake. It was Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right. So, and he also says, can you explain the St. Paul thing, please? Well, basically, the Conservatives won by 2,000 majority in Toronto St. Paul. As a shock to the Liberals, because the closing polls had them close, but they were predicting that the Liberals would win it by a small margin when it's a when it's a Liberal safe seat?
Basically, Chris, they had a by-election there, and
Yeah.
it is a Liberal stronghold. If the Liberals were to lose that, and I looked at news footage from 10 days before the election, where the pundits were saying if they ever lose that, that's a huge problem for Trudeau. Yeah, so the by-election in Toronto St. Paul went to the Conservatives when for the 30 years, the last three, as a matter of fact, the last three elections were won by 25 to 30 points over the closest rival.
Yeah.
This is a sudden and total shift in Canadian politics when you have a Liberal stronghold that you know that you can count on, and during the campaign, Justin Trudeau and just about every one of the ministers went there to help rally the troops, and they lost. That's a big deal.
Well, and also, he actually said in a portion of the run up to this election that this is a referendum on his ability to govern.
Yes, and also the Liberals claimed victory before the end of the ballots being counted. That's how confident they were. They said, "Oh well, we won again in Toronto St. Paul," but when all the ballots came in, it turned out to be that they were claiming a false victory, which is another embarrassment for them. Today, there's going to be a Liberal caucus meeting, and today, the Liberals who are holding seats do not want to lose their seats because of the Liberal leadership. This was a referendum on Justin Trudeau as much as anything. And when the electorate at Toronto St. Paul were asked, one of the most common things is Justin Trudeau's got to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hope that answers your question, Chris.
I hope so as well. Okay, so this is one I've been holding for a little while, which we haven't gotten to. WikiLeaks leader was released from a British prison, and he's on his way to a remote Pacific island on Tuesday, where he'll be pleading guilty to a conspiracy charge as part of a plea deal with the United States Justice Department, according to court documents. And the arrangement will free him at the end of years-long legal battle over the publication of classified documents on his WikiLeaks website.
I am hugely relieved by this. I am hugely relieved that Julian Assange is set free. The punishment that he has had to endure is beyond belief, if you ask me. He wanted to expose the truth. Nobody likes the truth, unfortunately, especially governments. Now, we always hear about how he's embarrassed the United States by exposing their secrets, but he's not the only one. He exposed China and Azerbaijan, and I don't know how many other states, exposed them for what they were. But we always zero in on what he's done to the United States because they're the ones that have come prosecuting. The Australians have insisted that he should come back home, that what he has endured is long and over. And the United States has heard this at a time when they need a lot of friends, I guess. They have heard this, and they have offered him a plea deal where he actually admits to being part of espionage. Privately, he would not have, but publicly he will. And this will get him out of British prison and take him back to Australia, which is his home. I think I have a tremendous relief here because I was afraid that he was going to be persecuted in American jails. And the vindictiveness of the United States when it comes to whistleblowers is unbelievable.
Massive,
We think
yeah.
of that kind of thing in third world countries, but it happens in the United
Well,
States.
but you think about what he's gone through. He's been 10 years, I think, more than 10 years. He's been locked up in, first of all, was it the Peruvian embassy or somebody else?
No, Ecuador.
Ecuador. Okay, I knew it was South American somewhere. I couldn't remember exactly where. Ecuadorian embassy. Then he went to a British prison, and you know, now, you know, it's basically time served, right?
Really, it's time served. He's going to get away with that. He has to admit to something he didn't do, and that'll get him off the hook, but that'll get him out of prison and reunite him with his family. He's got a couple of kids and a wife.
Yeah.
He's going to have a very hard time readjusting. And right away I was suspicious of this deal because I have this feeling that Julian Assange is going to come to an untimely death that no one can explain or will be attributed to some nutcase. I'm very afraid of his continuance. And Snowden, we got to get Snowden out in the same way. These are people of conscience. These are people of conscience that found out that the Western democracies are doing evil things, terrible things that we don't want to talk about. And if you ever, I'll tell everybody here to go to YouTube and put up Collateral Murder. Collateral Murder is a video that Julian Assange put up as part of WikiLeaks. The U.S. Army's official explanation of this particular incident was that a bunch of people, including two Reuters journalists, were caught in a crossfire fight between insurgents in Iraq and the U.S. Army. What it really was a helicopter gunship slaughtering innocent people, including them, and almost killed a couple of children. And a man that stopped to help somebody that was wounded. They murdered him. It was cold-blooded murder. And go to YouTube and see Collateral Murder. Look it up. It is chilling.
Right.
And the U.S. Army was able. The only Reuters kept pushing the U.S. Army to tell them what had happened, and the U.S. Army just kept dodging them, and they were able to do that until WikiLeaks exposed the U.S. Army by releasing what they had found.
Okay, so Chris Simone says Assange's phrase, that's an important correction for the First Amendment right to free speech. Unfortunately, pleading guilty sets a precedent for a future verdict on journalists sharing information. He also needs vital surgery, something I wasn't aware of that.
Look, but I'm still very afraid of his ability to work. I think he's been absolutely destroyed psychologically and physically. When he was in court, he was in a glass box, and when they this is what his family has told us. He was in a glass box. They put him in a glass box. And when he had to answer, he had to kneel down to the floor where the vent was to answer the questions. Otherwise, he wouldn't be heard. So when they posed questions to him, he had to kneel down and lie down on the floor and yell out of the ventilation area of his glassed-in box. Remember, Chelsea Manning, who was who fed him the information, was kept in isolation. He was kept in isolation, or she was kept in isolation for 1,100 days in solitary confinement. That is the vindictiveness of the U.S. government. Don't anyone say anything about their justice system. It is not.
Okay.
If you do something against the U.S. government, they will do things to make your life miserable. And Chelsea Manning had to live in isolation for 1,100 days. Got out 1 hour a day.
Well, okay. So there's another interesting thing is I've just gone to WikiLeaks.org and I noticed there's nothing here post August 2021.
Yeah, they'll do everything to shut it down as they can.
Yeah.
The only one that's feeding them information a little bit is Snowden, and he's in Russia right now. And he wants his day in court, but he wants a fair day in court, and he's not going to get it, unfortunately. But because Julian Assange is an Australian, and the Australians put a very, very dim view on what the Americans and the Brits have done to Julian Assange, they want him home. He is their person. And I celebrate the Australians for making that point and insisting that he come home. Yeah. So they came up with some kind of arrangement. And our listener who said that unfortunately he has to plead guilty to something is not a good thing for journalism.
Okay, so you actually had a number of I'm not, when I say odd, I'm not being critical, right? You had a number of odd articles up there about a number of different things, including damsels and dragonflies not only help keep pesky insects in check, but they also serve as indicators of a healthy ecosystem. This came from Simco.com, which is basically our equivalent of Niagara the Simco equivalent of Niagara this week. And so, basically saying summaries here, it's time to worry about all the flies like black flies, mosquitoes, deer flies, and the like. But there are other insects out there in the wild that will actually help keep these flies under control. And that's where the damselflies and dragonflies come in.
This is a really good article. It would take us a long time to get into it here, but damselflies and dragonflies and damselflies are my favorite bugs. I love them. I love them. If you've ever spent time up north and you're surrounded by deer flies and mosquitoes, and the damselflies come out and they start eating the mosquitoes, and the dragonflies start eating the horseflies and the deer flies, you know what I'm talking about. Plus, they're majestic looking. These are very ancient flying insects. They are among the very earliest of flying insects, and the dragonflies being around, I think, probably for 250 million years, and it is an awesome predator. And not only that, and you think of the dragonfly, so never kill a dragonfly, never kill a damselfly. No. They are your friends, right? Do not do that. Do not spray them. Do not hit them. Do not be in fear of a dragonfly or a damselfly, which people sometimes are. And don't spray them or anything else. They're the ones that are eating the bugs that you don't like. They're not going to ever bite you. No. So if you see a dragonfly or a damselfly, just welcome it. It is an ancient creature that goes around and it eats the things that we don't like. Mosquitoes and deer flies and horseflies. They are our pals. And not only are they our pals when they are flying around, but also when they are nymphs in the water. Dragonflies and damselflies lay their eggs, and the eggs then hatch into being nymphs in the water. And they live there for a time. And what do they eat? They eat mosquito larvae. Dun, 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 dun. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
If you see a dragonfly, just thank it for being there.
Yeah. And there's quite a lot of these things, and they actually, they're basically saying, okay, this order contains 6,300 species worldwide. Damselflies, there's 3,200 types of them. Dragonflies, there's 3,100 types of them. And I can't pronounce the other. Ipio no, I can't pronounce that one. Epiophlehioptera. Yeah. Epiphylloptera. Would that be about right?
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. That was a new one on me too.
Yeah. I don't know. The only way I can break those down is kind of break them down like that and try out some things and see what actually works, you know. And I'm probably a million miles off. And if there's an expert on these insects, he's probably screaming at listening to the show. He's probably screaming at me, "No, Peter, you said it wrong."
Yeah. So I've witnessed where a boat was being surrounded by dragonflies and the people freak out and start swinging their oars at them, trying to knock them out of the sky. No, 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 no. The dragonfly will never bite you. It is attracted to the insects that you are attracting.
Yeah.
Karen Fraser said, it really upsets me when I see a few dragonflies nowadays. Yeah, definitely. Dragonflies. And I love the look of dragonflies too. They are majestic flyers. They're unbelievable flyers.
But again, okay. So what basically Karen's saying, she is concerned because of the lack of dragonflies nowadays, but isn't in part some of the things like mosquitoes and things, we get rid of them in other ways. So we deal with mosquitoes there are things you can do to actually spray and keep mosquitoes at bay, right?
Yeah, maybe, but I had a cottage. Up north, and it was on a point of land. Basically, it was on an island. It was on a point that faced south. And every evening, the dragonflies would come around my cottage and swarm around my cottage. Not every night, but every once in a while, they'd be swarming around my cottage, big swarms of dragonflies. And I just loved it. Not only were they magnificent flyers and of every different color and shape, but they were eating the accursed deer fly. Mostly they were eating deer flies, and we had lots and lots of damselflies that were taking out the mosquitoes. If you've ever been fishing like I was one time, I was fishing and I was being harassed by deer flies. They were biting me, and along comes Madam Dragonfly, and she comes and takes one of the deer flies right out of the air, lands on my leg, and devours it. Oh my God! I thought, you are a princess.
Yeah.
To get rid of that annoying deer fly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but again, we, because of the buildup of urban life, of course, there's less of those deer flies and mosquitoes and things in the urban centers anyway.
In the urban centers, but I'm thinking of the Welland River, the Chippewa Creek, those places like that. It's very important that those ecosystems stay functioning. Dragonflies, deer flies, dragonflies will eat the deer flies, and the mosquitoes. Those things are very important. Dragonflies, I just want to reinforce the fact that dragonflies and damselflies are our friends. Don't kill them at all. Don't spray them. If they land in your house, just kind of show them the door. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. And Chris Simone is saying thank you. Right. Actually, we've gotten through a heck of a lot of stuff today. I have to say that we've got through a heck of a lot of stuff, and I'm pleased with everything that we've been discussing because we did it at a cracking pace.
Yeah, we got a lot involved here. Yeah, and as I said earlier on, that the caucus meeting and the Liberal caucus meeting today will be very, very anxiety ridden. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so let's put your question back on the table from a few weeks ago. When is Trudeau's resignation day? Right, you said 9/11, right?
Yes.
I said I don't see him resigning. I see him going right through to the election because he believes he can win it. Has that changed?
Not for me. Not for me. I think 9/11 is still this thing because I right now the Liberal Party members see a destruction that they saw under Ignatieff coming.
Yeah.
Basically, when they're nearly emasculated, and the same thing happened to the Conservatives. Don't forget, Mulroney hung in there just a little too long, and his party was reduced to like about 3 or 4 seats.
Yep.
In the Parliament before it was able to come back. So
Michael Ignatieff,
the Liberals are looking at that right now and looking at the history of the Canadian electorate. Those people who are in office now do not want to be tarred with a brush of Trudeau.
And Randy is basically saying he's with me. Trudeau doesn't see himself as at any fault.
Unfortunately, the backbenchers and everybody else that think they are still possibly winners of their seats do not want to be knocked out of their seats because of Trudeau. And that is the question that is what's going to enter the in the caucus today is the average
but he did
holder of the average member of the Liberal Party that holds a seat. They want to be able to compete on the basis of themselves. They don't want to be knocked off of their seat because of Trudeau.
Well,
but they know they're going to take a shellacking next year. At least that looks like it. But those people who are firmly in place in Liberal strongholds don't want to lose because of Trudeau. And in Toronto, St. Paul, when reporters asked them what is your main problem, and most of them shouted Justin Trudeau.
Yeah. Well, here's the question: is also yesterday when he spoke in BC, he was totally unimpressive.
Well, he said, "I hear the need." That's pretty lame. And he says, "Times are tough. I know that." Well,
that's what
are you doing to mitigate what times are tough?
Yeah, and doesn't matter. I'm not going on about him because he's liberal or anything like that. I'm just talking about any leader that reacted that way to a loss of a primary by-election that they should have walked away with, as you know, he should have been shaken to the core yesterday, and he wasn't.
He was, but he put on his bravest face. Right now, he's going to be under assault because a lot of those Liberals who hold seats do not want that are secure in their seats, like Toronto, St. Paul.
Well,
I mean, Leslie. What was it? Leslie Smith was her name, who was the Liberal contender there, was the secretary of Chrystia Freeland. At Toronto St. Paul, they had Trudeau. He came twice. Chrystia Freeland showed up. Leslie was the secretary or assistant to Chrystia Freeland. So she was high up. She was not a simple, ordinary person running for that office. She was an important person. And Leslie Church. And she got beat. And other liberal members look at that, they're going to say, I don't want to get beat because of Trudeau.
Yeah. she was a fairly well-known liberal anyway. You know, she's not a young upstart, so she was fairly well known in liberal circles. And Karen basically says, look at how many independents ran on Monday's by-election. People are bailing from the path of the two main parties. And yeah, the 78 people stood in there, and hey, I was even quite surprised on that election by you know, some of the minor parties who you would never expect to have gotten as many votes as they did, you know, getting more votes. And also,
it has to be noted. It has to be noted. It has to be noted that most of those people that participated in the election were a protest vote for electoral reform. That is why they entered the race. They wanted to make a message, like you don't get 84 people running for one seat anywhere. And this is a very educated electorate, and they were protesting the fact that Trudeau did not go ahead with electoral reforms.
Yeah. All right. And I think we're going to have to leave it there. So, Dave?
Without further ado, I bid you adieu and pray for peace.